She made America laugh every week, but the man standing beside her was someone she could barely tolerate. Vivian Vance and William Frawley may have played one of television's most beloved couples on I Love Lucy, but off-camera, the tension was real, bitter, and impossible to hide. What really happened behind the scenes was far darker than playful bickering, involving humiliation, addiction, cruelty, and a line that was crossed one too many times. Hollywood tried to smooth it over, laugh it off, and keep the cameras rolling. But Vivian never forgot, and she never forgave. So what did William Frawley do that made her utterly despise him? And why did this feud become one of classic TV's best-kept secrets? Let's uncover the truth Hollywood didn't want you to see. William Frawley and Vivian Vance absolutely hated each other. When Vanity Fair spoke with J.K. Simmons about playing William Frawley in Being the Ricardos, he described his performance as a painting, not a photograph, allowing for some creative interpretation. But one conclusion from his research was absolute. William Frawley and Vivian Vance truly despised each other. According to everyone Simmons consulted, the tension began at the very first table read of the I Love Lucy pilot. Vance, who was significantly younger, born in 1909 compared to Frawley's 1887, openly commented on the age gap and dismissively referred to her on-screen husband as an old coot. While both actors remained professional in front of the cameras, Simmons noted that their relationship off-set quickly deteriorated. The hostility followed Frawley beyond I Love Lucy. While working on My Three Sons, co-star Tim Considine later recalled an incident backstage when someone asked Frawley what Vance was really like. His crude response, reportedly involving a vulgar slur, was so offensive it was considered unprintable. Their animosity was so deep it even killed a potential spin-off. According to the Forgotten Desi and Lucy TV projects, Vance turned down a Mertz's spin-off and a $50,000 bonus simply because she refused to work with Frawley again. Their mothers both condemned their work as sin. Although Vivian Vance and William Frawley were born decades apart, they shared one oddly similar experience. Both were raised by mothers who believed acting was sinful. According to the Lucy book author Jeffrey Mark Fiddleman, Vance grew up in a strict Kansas household as one of 6 children. When she told her mother she wanted to become an actress, the response was harsh. Her mother accused her of choosing a career that would lead men into temptation. That disapproval never softened. Even after Vance became famous, her mother refused to watch anything she appeared in and rejected financial help from her daughter, dismissing it as Satan's money. Frawley's background wasn't much different. As Closer Weekly notes, he was raised in a devout Irish Catholic family, and his mother also opposed his involvement in entertainment. Her disapproval followed him for years, forcing him to move frequently and contributing to the false starts and instability in his early career. William Frawley went from the top of the world to not. William Frawley's casting on I Love Lucy came with unusually strict conditions. According to Closer Weekly, he was put on a short leash from the start. One mistake would cost him a week's pay, and a second would get him fired outright. Author Jeffrey Mark Fiddleman, who wrote the Lucy book, explained that by the time Frawley sat down with Desi Arnaz to discuss the role of Fred Mertz, his reputation was already working against him. He was widely seen as difficult and unreliable, and many in Hollywood simply didn't want to work with him anymore. The rules weren't about ego, they were about risk management. It was a sharp fall from where Frawley had once stood. He began his career in vaudeville, where he and his wife Louise had a hugely successful act. Frawley was a genuine star, known as a charismatic song and dance performer who introduced popular standards like Carolina in the Morning and My Melancholy Baby. After vaudeville faded and after his marriage ended, he transitioned into film, appearing in more than 100 movies, often alongside major stars such as Bob Hope. But by the time I Love Lucy was being developed, Frawley's career was clearly on the decline. Part of the problem was his growing reputation for being unreliable, a serious liability in an industry crowded with eager replacements. Another factor was age. The youthful charm that had once fueled his success no longer fit Hollywood's image of leading men, and the industry had little patience for aging performers. William Frawley's drinking nearly cost him his career. When Entertainment Weekly examined what Being the Ricardos got right and wrong, one detail stood out as undeniably true: William Frawley's long struggle with alcohol. The film portrays him as someone ordering drinks as early as 10 a.m., and that reputation wasn't exaggerated. His drinking was an open secret in Hollywood, and a major reason his career had begun to stall. In fact, it was serious enough that CBS initially refused to cast him in I Love Lucy at all. Desi Arnaz ultimately stepped in and fought for Frawley, but the approval came with strict conditions. If Frawley missed work or caused problems because of drinking more than once, he would be written out of the show. To his credit, Frawley stuck to the agreement and kept himself in line while working on I Love Lucy. When actor J.K. Simmons later portrayed Frawley in Being the Ricardos, he paid close attention to subtle details in Frawley's real-life mannerisms. In an interview with Awards Daily, Simmons explained that he noticed Frawley often had visibly trembling hands. His hands tended to shake, Simmons said. As I watched film of him, he's always protecting himself, so I put my hands in my pockets or on my hips to hide them. After Frawley left I Love Lucy for My Three Sons, those strict safeguards disappeared. According to Audrey Kupferberg, co-author of Meet the Mertzes, his old habits returned. She told Page Six that Frawley would often spend much of the day drinking at a nearby bar called Nicodell. When it was time to film, actor Tim Considine was sometimes sent to retrieve him, an uncomfortable reminder that the problems that once threatened to end Frawley's career had never truly gone away. William Frawley made life more difficult than it needed to be. Fred Mertz is often remembered as curmudgeonly, cranky, and sharp-tongued. But according to many who worked closely with William Frawley, the character was essentially a toned-down version of the man himself. Jeffrey Mark Fiddleman, author of the Lucy book, has said that Frawley had very few people he genuinely got along with. Those who knew him described his personality in harsh terms, often labeling him anti-Semitic, racist, and deeply misogynistic. He wasn't particularly interested in forming warm relationships on set or off it. He didn't really like people, Fiddleman explained. He preferred the company of his Irish drinking buddies and gambling friends. That worldview, according to Fiddleman, found its way directly into the writing of Fred Mertz. The character evolved to reflect many of Frawley's real-life traits, making Fred feel authentic because, in many ways, he was. That misogyny, Fiddleman noted, played a major role in Frawley's toxic relationship with Vivian Vance. He described Frawley as openly disrespectful toward women he didn't find attractive, dismissing them entirely if they didn't serve his personal interests. It was an attitude that made any kind of camaraderie with Vance virtually impossible. Lucille Ball herself once remarked that Frawley wasn't acting so much as he was being himself, and he made little effort to soften that edge, even when it created tension on set. Vivian Vance advocated for mental health. In 2015, the Albuquerque Museum honored Vivian Vance with a special exhibition celebrating her life and career. Albuquerque held deep personal significance for Vance. She had moved there as a teenager, and it was where she first found real opportunities in show business. The local community believed in her talent so strongly that in 1932, residents pooled their own money to send her to New York City, hoping she could launch a successful career on a bigger stage. Even after achieving fame, Vance never forgot her roots. She frequently returned to the same Albuquerque theater to perform and later helped finance its expansion, giving back to the place that first supported her dreams. Behind the scenes, however, her life was far from glamorous. Museum curator Deb Slaney told Alibi that the constant stress of working with William Frawley, combined with Vance's frustration at being repeatedly cast as the frumpy sidekick, took a serious emotional toll. At one point, the strain contributed to what was described as a nervous breakdown, underscoring how deeply the pressures of her career affected her well-being. Rather than hiding her struggles, Vance became one of the earliest public figures to openly speak about depression and mental health, according to Publishers Weekly. More importantly, she turned her pain into compassion. In Albuquerque, she was well known for volunteering at women's care homes, where she spent time listening to residents and offering comfort. She would listen as they talked, Slaney explained, because she knew how important it was for people with mental illness to feel heard. Her advocacy extended far beyond local efforts. As noted in her Los Angeles Times obituary, Vance also served on the board of the National Mental Health Association. William Frawley suffered a visible decline. William Frawley was already in his 60s when I Love Lucy was filmed, and by the time the series ended, he was still technically under contract with Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball's production company, Desilu. Despite that, he broke the agreement and accepted a new role as the grandfather on My Three Sons. At first, the move seemed like a fresh chapter, but as the years passed, it became clear that Frawley's health and his cognitive abilities were beginning to decline. Actor Stanley Livingston, who worked closely with him on the show, later recalled that Frawley initially came across as exactly what audiences expected, a quirky, good-natured grandfather who brought warmth and humor to the set. But before long, troubling signs began to appear. Frawley started forgetting his lines, and his overall health visibly worsened. In the early stages, the writers tried to accommodate him. They adjusted scenes so his character could remain seated instead of standing, hoping to ease the physical strain. As time went on, the situation became more serious. Frawley would sometimes fall asleep in the middle of a scene, and eventually, he struggled to remember more than a single line of dialogue at a time. His condition continued to deteriorate, culminating in a stroke. Frawley also failed the studio's required physical exam. According to Livingston, the producers were informed that he might not even survive through the rest of the season. With that prognosis, the decision was made to write his character out of the show, replacing him with an uncle portrayed by William Demarest. Looking back, Livingston reflected on how devastating the loss of the role was for Frawley. "All he really had at that time was My Three Sons," he said, "and when they took that away from him, he really had nothing to live for." William Frawley died in 1966. When William Frawley died in 1966, the New York Times described him in its obituary as a good-natured rascal, a phrase that neatly captured both his charm and his contradictions. The paper noted that after leaving My Three Sons, Frawley had undergone surgery for what was described as a prostate condition. Additional details about his final days later appeared in Hollywood death and scandal sites, shedding light on a life that ended quietly but dramatically. For nearly 4 decades, Frawley lived almost entirely out of a single place, the Hotel Knickerbocker in Hollywood. According to I Love Lucy historian Jeffrey Mark Fiddleman, this was not unusual for performers who came up through vaudeville, where constant travel made permanent homes unnecessary. The hotel became Frawley's world. For much of that time, his closest and only regular companion was his sister. Only shortly before his death did the two move into a nearby apartment complex known as the El Royale. On March 3, 1966, Frawley was walking past the Hotel Knickerbocker when he suddenly suffered a massive heart attack. Witnesses rushed to help, pulling him inside the hotel and laying him on a couch in the lobby. Despite their efforts, he died there. He was 79 years old. Frawley's obituary also included a revealing quote about I Love Lucy, the show that ultimately defined his legacy. He admitted he never believed it would succeed. "I didn't think the thing had a chance," he said. "We did the lines over and over again, and it was like eating stew every night, stale and not a bit funny." Vivian Vance and Lucille Ball shared an emotional goodbye. Vivian Vance was also honored with an obituary in the New York Times when she died in 1979 at the age of 70. At her request, memorial donations were directed to the National Mental Health Association or the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, causes that reflected her lifelong compassion. After being diagnosed with breast cancer in 1973, Vance underwent treatment in New York and later retired to a home in Belvedere, California. By 1979, the cancer had spread to her bones. Despite her illness, those close to her said she found genuine peace in Belvedere. Friend Paige Peterson recalled Lucille Ball's final visit, describing moments filled with laughter, tears, and deep emotion. You could hear them laughing, and toward the end there was a lot of sobbing, she told People. When Ball left, Peterson remembered the pain on her face as overwhelming. She was in tears and unable to speak. Vance died just days later on August 17, 1979. Lucille Ball was devastated by the loss. Her daughter, Lucy Arnaz, later shared that Ball mourned Vance for months, explaining that Vivian had been like a sister to her mother. And there you have it. Thank you for joining us on this journey of discovery. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell to stay updated on future content. We hope you found this story insightful. See you in the next video. Goodbye.